All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Mary Beth the Andrews from Dread Central, and I am really excited to be here with someone I consider a friend, Scott Slone, director of Malibu Horror Story, which is out this month. Found footage made over, I think, a decade or more, Scott. So, how does it feel to have this sucker finally going out into the world, into theaters?
It feels really good. I mean, I can definitely say that when you spend a little less than a quarter of your life on one particular project, it's always going to feel good when it actually gets let out to the world. So I'm very excited for people to see it, and I'm very excited to, finally say that this is the last cut and version we'll ever do. No more editing on this movie, and yeah, so.
So, for people who haven't seen it, there are a couple different layers of this film, and each of those layers kind of represents a different phase of you making the movie, right? Can you tell me a little bit more about kind of like the story behind making Malibu Horror Story? Because I know it's a pretty crazy one.
Yeah, so it started in 2009. I was in the theater watching during Halloween, actually. I think it was on Halloween night watching Paranormal Activity. And I'd heard about it. It did the festival circuit for about a year or so. And when I saw that film, I witnessed the audience mostly kind of react the same way people did to Blair Witch. There
Hmm.
was just this kind of personal, because of the POV camera. And I had been obsessed with Blair Witch. I used to live quite close to where you are, and that's not far from Burkittsville, and
Yep.
there's exactly. So I grew up playing in the woods in Maryland, just if anybody wants to know. But so yeah, so those movies resonated with me, and we made the first version. Everything I'd done prior was on film, and so digital cameras had just came out, so it was really cheap and easy to go out there and just shoot a found footage picture, in 2010. And so the first version was called Malevolent, and
Oh.
that version, only 4 seconds of that film is in the current film, and that's just a quick flash. We see the kids, it says freshman year, and that really is the kids 18 years old. Like they are literally that old in that clip. And then a couple years later, we kind of sculpted it and molded it a little bit more, to kind of make it a more, I guess, it's still 100% found footage. And that movie was called The Malibu Tapes. And that was basically Malevolent with a bigger budget. So, and it was mostly, I mean, to be honest with you, it's really funny now, but the tagline then was called Party Then Die. And it was literally a movie about a bunch of kids that graduate, have a massive party, go to this rave, and then go up to the woods, stumble upon this cave, and all hell breaks loose. And it was your typical kind of found footage structure where like an hour 15, you're just kind of living with them. And then the last 15, 30 minutes, it just goes off the rails, essentially. And so that was 2016. And I felt pretty good about that. We did a test audience for it, and it went over pretty well. But a lot of the audience was a little bit tired and felt like the market had been a little bit flooded and
Mm.
oversaturated with found footage. And unfortunately, distributors and studios felt the same way. And we kind of had a decently, put together, fairly well polished, I felt, found footage film. And unfortunately, in this business, when you finally get it finished, and it just so happens to be at the kind of tail end of the big bubble that kind of burst as far as financially goes, as far as theaters go. It didn't burst. I learned this later from you and from many other people, that it didn't burst at all. It just went completely underground. But for
Yeah.
us, we were really hoping to get it out there to the masses in a theatrical setting. And so
Mhm.
we had to go back to the drawing board one more time, and take the Malibu Tapes. Also, that title had got used, tapes had got used a whole lot like that year and the following years. And so
Yeah.
we went back to the drawing board one more time and tried to figure out a way to kind of deliver the found footage differently. And so the idea was ghost hunter shows, paranormal investigators, true crime. A lot of these things were very popular, especially with the youth. And so I felt like it would be kind of sneaky to kind of take our found footage, which is about 45 minutes of the movie of the Malibu Tapes, and kind of put it inside a ghost hunter show, mockumentary, true crime thing, and then put that inside of kind of a traditional horror movie, so that I felt like a broader audience would get it, and found footage fans would like it as well because they could see kind of what I did with it.
Hell yeah. Wow. Like what a journey. What a ridiculous journey to get a movie made. But I mean, it it's cool to see. I mean, again, you probably never would have known like the form it was going to take when you first started, but it's really cool to the story of it in and of itself is so interesting about like how the format has adapted and changed so much in the last decade or so, especially since Paranormal Activity. And I think what's so awesome about your film is how you see that change. Like it is almost like your film was almost like a time capsule of found footage in the 2000s, which is really cool, or like the 2000s, 2010s, which I think is really interesting.
Definitely. It was fully inspired by that. There wasn't a lot out. We were shooting at the same time Chronicle was shooting to take everybody back. I think
Yeah.
Cloverfield had just come out a couple years ago, and it was basically that early on. And so I tried my hardest not to watch other films that were coming out. And the ones that were coming out, there's so many that I really like. And that was the golden era of found footage. And you're right, over technology and time shaped this film. The original script and the final script are completely different. Technology over the years, 30 different cameras, as we've evolved, shaped this movie into what it is. So I honestly can't take full credit for it. I think time can take credit for the way this movie turned out.
That's so weird in a cool way, but like what a weird kind of
Yeah.
approach, like, and thought about your movie. But I feel like that is, again, like I keep saying, it's just like an interesting approach to a movie. And again, if you had your way, this would have been out a long time ago. I know that, so it is interesting. Like fully recognize that. But I'm also curious, like you incorporate indigenous people in your film, and horror obviously doesn't have the best reputation in doing that. So what was kind of your approach to making sure you had, you know, not hitting that in your film?
Yeah. So, I mean, it, I grew up with movies like The Shining, Poltergeist, Pet Cemetery. So there was a lot of lore that I was attracted to. I've also been on the West Coast for almost 20 something years. So
Uh-huh.
for me, there's a lot of stories we hear in Santa Barbara, Malibu, a lot of tours I got to take and a lot of cool things I got to experience. So for me, I wanted to incorporate something that I felt was, there's some partial truths here, that's for sure. There's definitely some history that America has that we know, but also just, for me, it's like I like movies and I like horror movies and I like things that just seem real or could be real or have a history to it. And so even like Latin culture, so much of that stuff fascinates me as well when it comes to a lot of their beliefs as well. So for me, it was just kind of like trying to do something the same, but a little bit different. In certain areas, we might have pushed it a little too hard. And in other areas, we didn't. I think it's vague enough to be a general blanket, but yeah, it's a movie, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's trying to, for me at least, it's trying to shed some light on some things is what I would say, is what I would say about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and you have some really awesome talent playing like the creatures essentially, and I wanted to hear more about the talent that you have playing like your bad guys, your monsters in the film.
Yeah, so we have Doug Tate and Troy James, and both of
Yeah.
them, just to give you some backstory on this. So with Doug, I had seen the Friday the 13th, and he was like the Michael Myers and Jason. And so I had seen him do, and this was early on. This was in 2010 when I got to work with Doug. No, 2012 when I worked with Doug. So this was
Okay.
early on, but he was still fairly well in the industry. He was highly recommended as like the guy because he could do all his own stunts. He was a good
Cool.
actor, and he's just a generally nice guy. With Troy, it was kind of out of left field. I randomly saw Canada's version of America's Got Talent, and I saw a behind the scenes clip of this guy basically contorting and walking upside down, scaring the producers in the back room of Canada's version of America's Got Talent. And so I made a phone call to a friend and I said, "Hey, who is this guy?" And they said, oh, he's from Canada. You know, he's doing movies too. Like, he's great. You should give him a call. And so we called him up. He was the super nicest guy ever. Had a really nice manager, and we hit it off. And we spent I think we spent about 2 years developing the look of the character. Spectral Motion, they do all of Guillermo del Toro's films. They did all the prosthetics and the head to
Oh,
toe.
hell
So
yeah.
really, it was just an idea in my head, and they brought it to life. And then Troy, just, you don't really see it until it's all done, and then they become that character. And Troy just became that. I mean, still to this day, shooting some of those scenes, in the cave, still scared me on set when he would come close to you. So yeah, but it's great. And like I said, I think another thing was, I really tried to stay away from visual effects and try to do everything practical in this film. So
Mhm.
this film is 99.9% practical. And a lot of people, I think we won 2 special effects awards this festival season because of Troy. They literally thought he was computer generated.
Really?
They were like, your special effects is amazing. The way the guy's body bent. And I said, wow, man, that's the
He's
greatest
real.
compliment for Troy ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, those guys are incredible. And like I said, that is just a testament to them, and bringing those kind of characters to life, and that fear to life.
That's so cool. Well, I mean, it must be so nice to now be free to work on other projects that aren't Malibu Horror Story. So, would you make another found footage movie? Are you still interested in what you can do with the subgenre? Are you ready to like try something a little different?
I mean, if you just want to talk about found footage, because I'm a huge found footage fan.
I
So
know.
for found footage wise, I can say that a folk horror film that we just wrapped on now has some elements, believe it or not, of found footage, even though the time period is very off. So I'll just hint that there are some elements of found
Cool.
footage in this one. The one following that is going to have a good deal of found footage elements. And I still owe Russell and Unnamed Footage Festival a all artsy found footage short. So I'm going to do that as well. And it's going
Hell
to be super
yeah.
artsy, super artsy.
I love that.
Because I missed that era. See, I was really paying attention to the studio box office era, and I totally missed the era of underground found footage. And like, and also just off films like World's Fair was one of my favorite movies of the last couple of years. And like, for me, it's just like I want to do something like that. That's for sure.
What did you love so much about World's Fair? What was it for you?
It
I love that movie so much, so I'm just curious for you how it hit, like why it hit you so hard.
it's the vibe from beginning to end. A lot of people, and I love Hereditary, but a lot of younger people were like, Hereditary is my favorite movie ever. And I was so curious about this because I like the movie. Don't get it wrong. I really do like
Yeah.
Hereditary, but I couldn't understand why it was affecting so many young people so much. It was like the number one movie on their list, right? And I remember being young, you'd see a movie and go, oh, it's my favorite movie ever, right? But a lot of young people were really resonating with Hereditary, and every single person's answer was the same. It was the tone, the creepiness, the tone that Hereditary
Mm-hmm.
has. And I think a lot of the modern horror filmmakers that have found that tone, the A24s making some of these films, there's something that resonates. World's Fair had a totally different kind of vibe and tone. And I was like,
Yeah.
any movie that makes me like not be able to get up, and have to keep watching and keeps me glued to the screen, even when there's not a tremendous amount of things happening within the frame, right? And for me, I was just captivated and glued to the screen the entire time, and the vibe was just the way it made me feel. I was like, I need to make something like this because it does something to you in this
Yeah.
area down here, and
Yeah.
and it's hard to explain. So for me, I think filmmaking, when you can make a film like that, that's good. And so even this folk horror film that's going on right now has that tone, has that vibe, and has that kind of uneasy feeling throughout.
Hell yeah, that's so cool. So, what would you say besides I'm going to exclude Blair Witch because I obviously know that's one of your answers, but what is a found footage movie that you really think people need to see besides yours and besides Blair Witch?
Yeah, Blair Witch is like the Godfather. Everybody answers the
Yeah.
Blair Witch question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm always like, you can't say it.
I mean, I'm a list guy. I tell this people, I'll tell this to people all the time. Like, if you give me a couple days, I could make an amazing list, like top 100 and reasons why. But if I was just to rattle off, if you've never seen found footage films, I like a good variety would, for me, at least my favorites would be a variety of something like Wreck, Troll Hunter, um, As Above, So Below, Lake Mungo. I just went back and watched Phoenix Forgotten. I actually really like Phoenix Forgotten. I know people do not
It's
like
not
that film,
bad. It's not
but
bad.
but there's something about the combination when, like, with Lake Mungo, everybody's like, oh, it's the most boringest movie ever. Like, I couldn't even sit through it. To me, there's something about the combination of like a realness factor. So I kind of judge a lot of movies based on how real they make me feel.
Oh yeah.
But Poughkeepsie tapes. There's so many that I like, but it would be really hard to like nail down. I did do a list for somebody over this last year. I think it was from Grimfest. I did do a list. I'd have to reference that, but there's
Okay.
so many, and they're so good. And like I said, there's definitely now I'm finding a whole lot that maybe hasn't gotten a lot of attention like the theatrical releases did. You know what I mean? Clearly, there's a lot of good foreign found footage films that don't get as much love or attention. And now that we don't have video stores anymore, it's like I feel like the word of mouth is like people like you kind of saving the genre. I've seen so many articles you've written about found footage, and I think it's going to take a lot of that for people to really kind of get educated and get to see all these probably, really great films that are out there that I haven't even seen over the last couple of years.
There's so much found footage out there. So it's so exciting that your movie is getting theatrical. And I know that your film is like a hybrid found footage situation, but I still consider it found footage with all the things you're doing. So I'm excited that maybe this will usher in more people into getting back into the subgenre. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, yeah, and I dug Outwaters as well. That came out, this Robbie's film. I mean, that was definitely like, to me, a big step forward for found footage. I felt like that was one of the
Oh yeah,
it's one of the truest found footage films I've seen in a long time.
I
So,
agree.
yeah, that also has a vibe and a
It,
tone.
it for sure does. Absolutely. All right. Well, Scott, so Malibu Horror Stories hits theaters on October 20th, correct? From Fathom Events or Iconic Events?
Iconic. It's October
Yep,
20th,
iconic.
theaters. We're getting more theaters by the day, and you can go to Malibu Horror Story tickets.com, punch in your zip code. Hopefully you'll see your city. If you do, you can purchase tickets straight from there. But yeah, it's coming out the 20th, and we're hoping for a decently lengthy festival run. I mean, theatrical run.
Well, everyone, get your tickets. It's great Halloween viewing, found footage in a theater. What is more Halloween than that? So, Scott, thank you so much for chatting with me about Malibu Horror Story. I'm so excited that more people in the world get to see it.
Thank you, Mary Beth. I appreciate it.